Over to you, Hiran.
Uh, yes, thank you, Anshu. Well explained as usual. Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome you all for the Acentic Vika session. As Anshu mentioned, my name is Hiran Karunanda, but my colleagues call me as Karu. Sometimes Paul Karu, you know that famous YouTuber in Sri Lanka. Yes, as Anshu mentioned, I have been in this tech industry for 18 years and currently working as head of UX UI for Acentic. In my career, I have had a privilege of working on a variety of projects from designing, developing web apps and products in various domains. So over to you, Pasindu. So give an introduction of yourself.
Thanks, Hiran. And hi, everyone. I'm Pasindu Madhushan. I have been working as a UX designer since 2020, and I'm more into visual and brand design category. Really like to play with colors and fonts and logo stuff. So in this session, I will be covering the prototype stage. See you on there. So over to you, Hiran.
Right. Thank you, Pasindu. Uh, so yeah, yeah, excited to share our knowledge and insights with you on holistic approach to product design. Uh, thought out our talk, that we will cover holistic approach works for product design by considering all aspects from the user experience to UI implementation to create cohesive and effective final product. I hope that you will find this information valuable and relevant to your work in day-to-day life. Once again, thanks for joining for this session and looking forward to engaging with you all during the Q&A session at the end. Right. First and foremost, let's go through the outline of this session. UX evolution is the first thing that we are going to talk about. So you know that the UX transition now, that people are mostly focusing on these days. And that's what we went to brief about in UX evolution area. The secondly, why holistic approach? Why we have taken a name called the holistic. The third one is a product environment. And the fourth one will be the UX workshop and design sprint. How we can, that day-to-day life, that the people mostly work up considering about the workshops and how to conduct design sprints. And also, I'm supposed to get some workshop activities with few examples. And the sixth on the prototype. So the person will take over and go through you how the prototype stage is going to work. And finally, the Q&A session. So you can raise any questions that you have. Yes, so UX evolution. So you can see in this image, left side, it's a kind of a hypothetical view that I am having right now. So you know that when we talk about 2015 until 2000, that range, that UX is kind of we are talking very less, and instead of that UI, that people are mostly focusing on that. So in such case, you can see that the left image, that is mostly talking about that there's a maybe the product owner or maybe the PM, that drive a person for a certain direction. So that we can assume that the person who sits in there is a kind of a designer. So since then, you can see that things has been turned around and the UX design or the product designer started to drive the whole UX design thinking process. So I just want to, that align with this idea, along with the experience, along with the timeline that I have come up so far. So underneath that, you can see the timeline that my career has, that progressing with so far. Since 2004, that I started my career as a web designer, and then I move into the UI engineer. There's a title called UI, senior UI engineer levels. And then when it comes to 2011, 2021 period, that the UX, that come into the play. So now you can see now that UX has, that taken most priority of most of the time. So, and also in your organization, I believe like leadership management is giving you a best support in order to drive design thinking process within your organization. In terms of resource allocation, include necessary budget and time for certain projects. So that's help you to drive your UX design thinking process and firmly. Right. Let's talk about why holistic approach. So why we select holistic? You know that the Pasindu and myself having trouble when setting up a name for this session initially. Literally, we eager to have a title which should align with our product design thought process along with the design thinking process. So we found a term like a holistic, which uses in healthcare mostly. This definition refers to treating a whole person, including their mental and emotional and social well-being, rather than simply addressing the symptoms of the physical illness. So when we think in that angle, we notice that the same theory can be applied to the product design because the holistic approach in product design involves considering all aspects of the product as it impacts the user experience drastically. Also, it focuses a whole, not on the individual fears on design elements. So if you're following holistic approach, you can gain these type of things like deep understanding of the design problem. So it's that it give you a holistic approach, that enables designer to gain deep understanding of the design problem, including user needs, business goals, and technical constraints. More innovative design solutions. It's like if you follow a holistic way, uh, the design problems that designers can generate more innovative. It's like that out of box thinking solutions that more effective and efficient. So your clients would love it, and every parties who engage with the project is successful, and ultimately people will love it. And also enhance collaboration, something that's really important when you're working with a kind of a team in order to drive your design thinking process. Because the holistic approach encourage collaboration between different stakeholders in the design process, such as designers, engineers, and business stakeholders, maybe. Yeah. And this can result more cohesive and effective design solutions as well. Increase user satisfaction is one of the another key stuff if you're following holistic approach, because its design solution meets the needs of the user and provide a positive user experience. So that's what we ultimately looking for. And also it improve business outcomes, which gain a lot of revenue for your company of as in terms of business perspective. So it's resulting in design solution that more effective and efficient and can deliver best business outcomes. All right. So I have a question for you. In this case, does this product development environment belongs to you? I hope you might have a differences in between these. Maybe your environment might be changed. Maybe your environment might align with this thing. Now you can see this upper part. There are certain groups are involved in, like client investors, product owners, product designer, team lead. And the latter part of the area, you can see that the UX designer, UI designer, and front end, back end developers, DevOps engineers, QA. This is a typical development environment that we can expect if you are really wants to drive through your design thinking process. So because now in this session we are solely focused on the product designer. So that's why he's that right on the top, that aligning with the key pillars. Otherwise that particular product design won't be able to that perform certain tasks. Maybe you might be in the latter part of the area, so you might be still working on kind of a maybe doing the UX still with the UI. Now in this session And moving forward, I'm taking the product designer concept out of this box. That in order to that drive my next slides, in order to give you a proper idea about this design thinking process, how the holistic approach works. So since being in the top of the layer, as you can experiment things like research, that maybe current state mapping, identify user persona, and doing empathy mapping, customer journey mapping, and you know that you can ultimately involve with the ideation process. And also we can do that the wireframing prototyping. That's something that you can do uh, in the lower layer uh, category that already might be you are currently working on it. So if you are entry level or junior level designer, definitely you might need some transition. It's not easy from bottom layer to top. It might take some time in order to develop or build your mindset. So you have to collaborate with more senior people in order to to gain some knowledge, because UX mindset building is not an easy task. It's that you can't. It's not an ending. It's never ending task, because you have to gradually improve your knowledge every time that you are engaging with a certain fixing problems to day-to-day life in clients and in the project level. And also active listening is the one key part that you need to have, because you need to observe every verbal and non-verbal message that you are dealing with the clients, product owners, and then will you will be able to provide appropriate feedback for the sake of showing alternatives to the message being presented. And also I want to give you like if you are still if you are the active listening is kind of, if you feel like this is not up to the level that you're required, I can suggest you can record your calls, maybe the Teams call, especially or Zoom calls. So then you can revise it again and you can see how we can that what sort of things that you have discussed within that call. So then that you can come up with good solutions. You can that ideate, brainstorming things, and you can help the team to that come to a design thinking process. So this all responsibility come to your way, because you are the product designer. So if you want to drive the holistic approach, you must need to adhere certain that behaviors, and that skill up your certain areas. All right. UX workshop design sprint. So these days, most of them are talking about this. And UX workshop and design sprints are important components of the design thinking process, because they help to facilitate collaboration in creativity and rapid iteration. Both are used to generate prototype and test new ideas in a rapid and iterative manner. A UX workshop typically involves a group of individuals from different disciplines who work together to improve the user experience. So let's talk about the UX workshop activities that you normally do. So we can conduct like user interviews, surveys, A/B testing, persona creation, empathy mapping, service blueprint, and prototyping testing as usual. And this workshop can be conducted in person or remotely, and can take a few hours to several days, might be, depending on the scope of the project. So definitely there should be a one UX professional. In our case, he or she is a product designer, so who guides the team through various activities, as I mentioned earlier. So what is design sprint? Design sprint is like a time box for 5 days. Actually, process created by Google Ventures. You might see in the internet, definitely. Why they introduce this thing? So it's like that ideally we won't be able to the time box into five days in our environment, but we can get the concept out and we can utilize into our design thinking, right? So literally, design sprint is ideal for startup and small businesses. It help. small teams to move quickly and efficiently to test new ideas and products. So if you are a product CEO or the entrepreneur of the startup company, so this is the ideal way that you can start with, because you can rather wasting a lot of times on budget for the certain to generate uh, idea into and the product. It that we need to validate in upfront, then we can see whether we can proceed with that or whether we need something missing during that circle. So for the large organization, design sprint can help, uh, but that encourage collaboration across departments to develop new products or services. So in that terms, so we can say like for the startup is going a different way. For the large organization, they can uh, cross department they can develop new products or services. Right. So if you follow design sprint, what are the advantages? So for the product managers, definitely design sprint provide a framework for product managers to gather insight and test assumption before investing significant time and resources in a new projects. So designers also for the designers also is helpful because it should ensure design meets business goals. And for especially innovators and entrepreneurs, design thinking can help individual and teams to bring new ideas to life quickly, validate their potential. Right. And as you see there, the palm of the hand. So that means the design thinking whole everything what in matter of your focusing on workshop or design sprint. Right. So defining UX workshop is also a key thing. So you have to. I have identified few 6 stages in this case. So the planning stage, the discovery stage, ideation stage, a design stage, implementation stage, evaluation stage. So planning most probably that you need to that as I mentioned in order to follow holistic approach you need a team to work with you, not only you. So as a product design you have collective efforts need to take into place. So in such case you need to that plan this planning stage you need to firmly arrange. So in such case you have to decide the objectives, what sort of part selecting the participants and setting an agenda. When it comes to discovery stage, you have to gather information about the users, the products, and the contents which used. So it involves activities like user research, interviews, and user testings. Ideation stage, that we have to ideate through brainstorming, maybe create personas and journeys, user journeys and customer journeys likewise. So design stage, as usual, you have to do prototyping, wireframing likewise, and conduct some user testing. So for the moment, I'm parking implementation stage. So I will tell you what is going on with that. And uh, this upcoming slides, I'm going to talk about the ideate and the design stages because I have a example you to show you that what sort of activities that we are currently playing with these particular stages, because these are the most critical stages in order to reach you to the design stage before you in order to reach you to design stage. So I earlier mentioned that implementations I need to park because as you know that in the normally design thinking process, the implementation means the developing things, that we consider once we evaluate our design and we come to certain stage that we are done with our design, right? So but some cases while we are designing some features, maybe that we see like these are concrete that we can perform with that. So in such case we don't want to wait until we complete whole design, we complete design for whole flow. So in such case, that we can allocate those areas to work to develop. We can start to develop rather than wasting time on that waiting, because everything is depend on the budget and time. Because we are developing a product here in this case, so the product we need to deliver quickly and get the MVP ready. Okay, so I'm going to get an example in order to give you an idea. So first thing is the example is to the fitness class booking app. So in my case, I have identified two personas. So you can see the persona one is like I identify the public user group. So within the under that public user group, persona one will be I call like Tinaya. It's a 20-year-old fitness enthusiastic who enjoys a variety of workouts and likes to hook classes on the go. So you can see there are certain sticky points that we have identified points, pain points, and the needs and goals. So in this case, it's like for this particular scenario, it's like that certain sticky notes that I have pointed out because these pointed just assume now you have completed the first stage. That means I previously mentioned the discovery stage where you have gained all research materials or by doing surveys, that on-site interviews, remote interviews. So if you have done that properly, so we can assume that you have plenty of collective information regarding the user data. So based on that factors, you can build up your personas. So that's the one example now I have built up here. So second persona is like uh, uh, the name called Hemal. So it's these are very fictional characters, not a kind of we call proto personas. So 35-year-old professional needs to find a class that fit around his busy schedules. Those are the persona types, that we can identify based on the needs, based on the findings that we found in our previous stage. In case, let's assume if you don't have much knowledge about the persona, maybe you don't have sufficient support to find the data from those personas, then you have to use a combined empathy map. You can combine empathy map with the persona, and from there you can drag those sticky points to the relevant pain points and goals and needs. So that's how the V empathy that I have used for certain scenarios. For in this our case, this how it works. Okay. So goal of the customer journey. So this is the next part that we want to focus on now once you create your persona. So what is the customer? The goal of the customer journey is like, that it's give a better understand the end user's journey. Ideally in the journey template, you should include user thoughts and emotions, but I haven't added those details as a available info is enough to conceptualize the possible use cases and journeys around it for book fitness class scenario. Now, when you come to this stage, I can assume that you should have a clear understanding about possible user flows of a customer journey as a product designer. Now, define a customer journey stage. One of the critical first thing that we have to do it. So what happened is in our example, awareness, consideration, booking, checking, and attendance. So these are the stations that identify for this booking fitness mobile app. Then we are setting out map out our touch points. So once you have identified those stages, we have to setting stages of the customer journey. We have to map out the different touch point where customers will interact with your product or services. So this will identify the to a specific action that user will take at each touch point to achieve their goals. So this skill would include your website, maybe social media channels, email marketing, customers support, and more. Yeah. Yes. So the third one will be needs and pain points. So these needs and pain points I feel from the step that from the previous step which I found the pain points and needs. So what I have done is I simply drag those items to the relevant columns and so the relevant rows. So then I can cross match. I can with the journey I have defined in the top layer. So I can cross match and see how it's working. Identify potential roadblocks is the other thing. So because anticipate any potential roadblocks that could prevent users from achieving their goals. In our example, we need to create an engaging and intuitive onboarding process that introduce users to the key features that benefits of our app. Because in our case, that our second persona, he's a kind of busy guy, so we need to send a push notification in order to let him that the upcoming classes and events. So so that's why these customer journey come into play. So outcome of this activity, so the better understanding of the customer. identify opportunities for for improvement, and align among team members within this for this particular stuff. And the second one will be the service blueprint. So once you complete your stage, so you can move to the service blueprint, where you can that highlight all the that how this customer service, or the as a service, how it's going to impact your customer journey map. So this mapping out the service workshop participant, they gain a deep understanding of the various touch point actors and interaction that make up the service. This can help identify areas improvement and optimization. So overall, I feel like you got a small idea about it, because this time is very crucial for us. So, but I want to tell you that these activities, that if you follow in this manner, so you can that gain some sort of that brainstorming your ideas to next level, and then you can seamlessly move into the wireframe. So, Pasindu will take over to tell you about the wireframes and the visual design aspect. Uh, okay, over to you, Pasindu.
Thanks, Hiran. Hi again, everyone. In this few upcoming slides, I am planning to cover the prototyping stage. But before that, I would like to share some valuable points regarding use of flow diagrams. So use of flow diagram are a critical step in the design process that should be completed before starting wireframes or any other prototyping activities, because they help to define overall structure of the product. So these diagrams help us to define the most critical user path, including entry points, decision, action, choices, and endpoints. So they also support to identify where users should go next and ensure the flow is logical and easy to follow. From this diagram, we can see where the flow might break down, where users may become confused, and where the product might not meet user needs. So this can help us save time and resources by fixing potential problem before they become major issues. And also this diagram, we can ensure that the product's features and functionality align with user goals. So making it easier to create wireframes in next stage. So useful diagram can be used as a communication tool within the team. So they provide a clear visual representation of the product's purpose, goal, and user paths, which can help ensure everyone is on the same page and working toward a common goal. To create user flow diagrams, it is important to clearly understand the target user and their goals, needs, and behaviors. So this can be done by user personas and user journey maps and other brainstorm sessions that we talked about earlier. Um, so then we need to start mapping out the user flow by creating a list of all the steps involved in completing a specific task. And once it done, we have to organize them into logical sequence that make sense to users. So we can visualize this using some design tools. So mainly at Ascentic, we use FigJam because it provide basic collaboration tools and templates that we required when it comes to collaboration and teamworks. So now we are formally ready to go to prototyping stage. The goal is to create a model that can be used to test and validate design with users, stakeholders, and other members of the design teams. So this also called in this actually can be done by using low fidelity designs and as well as high fidelity prototypes. So from here onwards, I'll be sharing the thinking processes, methods, what we consider and why we consider those things at Ascentic when it comes to prototyping. So this is the most interesting part from my point of view, because I'm more focused on visual design aspects. And other one thing is that this part is more interesting is now we are finally able to see what the end product going to look like. Yeah. So wireframes are the starting point, providing visual representation of products, layout, structure, and functionality. So advantage of this activity are like its simplicity and the speed of execution. We start sketching on paper using basic shapes. This will allow us to explore multiple solutions and identify opportunities quickly as possible. In those paper wireframes, we don't have to worry about anything other than the flow, structure, and layout. So these help us to brainstorm within the team and as well as simplify some complex scenarios before moving to more detailed version of wireframes. So this practice is really going to helpful when the team is working in the same place. And when you're creating more detailed wireframes, we have to consider a few more additional aspects as well. It's always better to use actual meaningful content rather than dummy text because it's helpful to understand wireframe more easily. Not in every places, of course. Places such as CTAs, section heads, and some key titles, and more especially the places where the main useful actions happening. So it's very important. When it comes to wireframe, the goal is to define the page architecture and keep it as clean and simple as possible. So we need to avoid the things that going to be distracting. So colors can be distracting. So that's why we, as an industry standard, we use mostly black and white with some other grayscale color options. Apart from colors, one other element is we need to avoid this imagery. So avoiding these allow us to focus on layout and a structure rather than uh, rather than the visual aspects. Effective information hierarchy is essential when it comes to wireframe as well. So we need to figure out the layout, structure, and information based on its importance and relevance to the end user. So it helps guide users' attention and understanding of the content and make it easier for them to find what they are looking for and complete their tasks. Um, yeah, and these things actually reduce the cognitive load of the viewer and as well as help us to focus only the necessary parts. So wireframe is all about rapid ideation. It needs to be fast. They should look balanced and convey the functionality to end user. So the tools and media actually doesn't matter, but one thing we need to keep in mind is how we're going to share and get feedback more effective and efficient way possible. So for that, uh, like creating wireframes using a solid design tool is going to be really helpful. So with few iterations, um, we will get the finalized set of wireframes. So once we get those, it's now time to move on to high fidelity designs, which are also known as visual designs. So visual design is a practice of using visual elements to communicate a message or create an experience. It involves like use of various visual elements such as colors, typography, images, layouts, likewise. So it is used to create everything from logo to like branding materials to website, mobile app, and other digital products. A well-designed visual experience can both aesthetically pleasing and as well as functional. For example, a website with good visual design will not only uh, look attractive, but also it also be very easy to navigate and use. Um, Visual design plays a crucial role when it comes to creating a memorable and recognizable brand identity, which help business to stand out a crowded marketplace. But before jumping into visual design straight away, we need to finalize and understand few things. Those are colors, typography, images, grid layout, design system that we are going to use within this product. These are the elements and materials that we are going to use repeatedly. So having finalized them early will be beneficial for a smooth process. For some products, there can be a pre-built design manual or guideline. In those scenarios, sticking to that is really important because we need to be consistent throughout all the branding materials and other media of that certain product. And one thing is it's really important to do a background study research on colors and font as well. As we all know, there's a concept called color psychology, and it provide us with information about the meaning, purposes of certain colors, advantages and disadvantages of using certain colors likewise. But sometimes these meanings can differ due to the target user group, and also due to target geographical location and many other reasons. For example, if we take red color, we mostly generally think red is like the symbol of danger. It symbolizes the danger. But some cultures and some geographical region, red is considered as the success color. So likewise, we need to have think about our user group and their location and their cultures when it comes to selecting colors and other aspects of like visual designs. When it comes to color and font, one more valuable point that we need to consider in the earliest stages is accessibility. So accessibility in visual design refers to the practice of creating visual content and user interfaces that are inclusive and can be easily accessed and understood by many people as possible, including people with disabilities. For that, we can take advantage of plugin within the Figma. So like example, Able, contrast checker, colorblind, uh, focus orderer, likewise. And also we can take advantage of some external website as well, like who can use web aim likewise. So these tools help us to keep our choices more accessible for a wider range of audience. Uh, One more thing that we need to decide early stage is the design system. So having a design system in the early stage of the visual design part of the project can be like extremely beneficial. This doesn't mean actually we need to build and complete the entire design system before the actual visual design begins. It's actually pointless and like a lot of time consuming. But what I mean, we need to start create a design system with the basic component and element that most of the product going to require in the beginning. And then we can let the design system grow as the product grows. So we mostly include atoms like colors, typography, icons, when it comes to colors like primary, secondary, semantic, likewise, and typography like display fonts, H1 to H6, body fonts, likewise, and moleculars like buttons, input field, form elements, uh, pop-up messages, and system messages like notification, likewise. Later, when we need like total new element or new component, we can add that to our design system at that point. So one more thing that we need to consider creating design system and a component is to take full advantage of the features these design tools provide. So always we need to think about the reusability and the customizability. So otherwise, having these not going to help us to make our process seamless. So it's better to be smart when it comes to creating these components. So currently, we are experimenting how we can get benefit from adding Token Studio plugin and Storybook JS into our design system process. So Figma natively support few kind of tokens. They call them as styles. So where we can save and reuse elements such as colors, typography, and shadows. But with token, we have access to wider range of variables, as you can see on the right side of the screen. So apart from giving access to those kind of tokens, it has many other benefits that we can get advantage of, like instantly switch between light mode and dark mode, and instantly switch between different themes, likewise. So we don't have to create or copy and paste projects or manually change colors. We just need to simply change few variables, and then we can have a dark mode, light mode, and other kind of themes. And also, when we are creating a design system, we need to have like sometimes we need to have description for certain elements. Example for as I mentioned here, as seen here, like for titles and text typography. So this Token Studio plugin will automatically generate these descriptions for us. So whenever we need we update something, it automatically updates this description. So we don't have to worry about updating like every place. It automatically do the job. And from development perspective, there is another benefit. So this token stored as a JSON format. So we can create component library using storybook.js, and it will be like really seamless. And we can link between Figma and that token library as well. Um, yeah. Hopefully, once we establish this approach and once we have advantages from these methods, we can share them with you with in another Fika session. So now we all set to start visual designs. But in this session, we are not going to not going go through in each step in that process. But next, I want to highlight very important point we need to consider when we are actually creating visual design. So it's actually how human perception works and why design principles and laws important on that. So look at this given example. On the left side, you can see how camera lens scan a scene through its lens. And right side, you can see how a human eye scan a scene. So for a camera, it's a single shot. It's scan the entire area all at once. But for human, it's not that simple. Human eye scans certain area of the scene which they think that important for them. So these areas can be differ from person to person. Once they're done scanning, then they get to know about the whole scene. But sometimes people might miss some valuable areas as well. So this is how we experience everything in our day-to-day life. Same for software product as well. So how we can create our visual design which go align with this basic human behavior. So it can be done by applying design principles and laws into our work. So Gestalt principles are a set of theories in psychology that describe how human brains organizes and perceives visual information. So these principles were developed by a group of German psychologists back in early 20th century, and they are still valid and style is still widely used today in fields such as design, marketing, advertising, and user experience. So I'm not going to dive deep into each here as we have so many free resources that we can learn these from things online. Apart from these, and there are some simplified set of principles as well, like unity, scale, hierarchy, balance, contrast, um, dominance. So we don't have to actually learn complex theories to make our design more enjoyable to use. We simply need to apply these principles and laws whenever possible. So these principles help us to make sense complex visual information by allowing our brain to organize it into recognizable patterns and shapes. So when we are creating visual designs, we have to think about these things as well. So those are the things we mainly consider when it comes to visual designing at Acentic, visual designing and prototyping at Acentic. And in here, we want to share some tips that better to keep in mind. These were really helpful for us, and we might hope it might be helpful for you guys as well. So when it comes to wireframe, it's all about rapid ideation and it needs to be fast. So always think when it comes to wireframe, think draft and sketch. Don't draw and illustrate. So if you think when it comes to wireframe, drawing an illustration, you might put a lot of time to make it more visually appealing. It's totally against to the purpose of creating wireframes. So always think draft and sketch when it comes to wireframe. And when it comes to visual design, it's not all about beautiful design because people don't use products because the UI is beautiful. They use products because they are doing what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, people don't use it. So always keep in mind, it's not all about beautiful design. It's about the designs that enjoyable to use. And the next point is keep end user in front of you. So, and the another point that goes along with this, don't get too attached to your designs. So, and in that case, you might get like frustrated and offended when we have feedbacks and things to need to update. So always keep in mind that we are designing, we are creating these visual designs to a certain group of people or certain persona. So the attachment need to happen between these two elements. So always keep that picture in front of you. Um, so the next point is take advantage of new features. So this means we are when we are using design tools and collaborative tools, always try to take fully advantage of those. So those things gives like regular updates to make our day-to-day workflows easy as possible, to make this easy as possible. So taking advantage of these features going to be really beneficial for us as individual and as well as for a team. And yeah, finally, I want to conclude my part here with sharing some thought on team collaboration. So team collaboration not just only happen in a prototyping phase, it's happening throughout the design process. So we here at Ascentic, we mainly use Teams as our collaborative tool as main communication channel. So in that, we maintain separate channels for UI UX activities. So and as well as we have in Teams we have the tab option. So we use our external links such as user flow, prototypes, and any other diagram links on those tabs. So all things related to product or project are in same location. So everyone can easily access those. Everyone can easily participate on those activities. So the other thing is when it comes to feedback and collaboration, we are mostly working as remote these days. So taking advantage of these tools are really going to be beneficial. So Figma and XD also supporting these collaborative methods and like tools in their in their environments. But we can make it like next level by integrating these tools into our Teams and Slack channels. So uh, it's going to be like seamless between our day-to-day tools that we are using. Yeah, so that is from me. Hope you learned something. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. Back to you, Hiran.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, I think you can have, if you have any questions, definitely it's time to raise questions. Um, Anju, you have something to say?
That was a great session from you and Pasindu Hiran. So I think I learned a lot. Certainly, I have a better understanding of what you guys do actually. So it's something great to learn. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Or if you could maybe raise your hand, we will be able to like unmute you. Then you could ask if there's any questions. But feel free to ask anything. Certainly, Hiran is here to like, he would love to let you know whatever the things he knows. You can get a lot out of him. 18 years of experience, that's lot of time. So certainly you can pick his brain and like get to know more stuff. If there's anything, just put it up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. My name is Indika. Actually,
Hi.
even though my name shows as Naditi Sasna, it's my daughter's connection I came through. I'm
Sure.
Indika. Uh, Small thing I want to ask is, uh, you were talking about these user personas, user journeys, etc. In
Yes.
practically, do you do all these things even for a small kind of a project even?
Yes, thanks for raising that question, Indigo. It's a good question. Ideally, it's depend on your, that the project based on your project's needs and that due to budget and all. So that in realistically, sometimes you won't be able to that follow all these activities.
Yes.
That as I mentioned, those constraints are there. But as a designer, you have some sort of that area to that perform the certain activities, like that without that conducting user interviews or making personas, you won't be able to have that clear view of what sort of person user you are going to design, right? So in such case, you have to at least perform certain level of persona creations, as I shown in the slides, in order to that identify their pain points, goals, and needs. Because without having those data, you can't move. It's difficult to go into the other levels. That because you are kind of touched blindly kind of feeling. So what I'm recommending is to at least try to that perform basic level activities like conducting interviews, maybe at least try to do some customer journeys likewise. So and once you have ideas, let's say you have certain ideas to perform, let's say that after doing some brainstorming, maybe you gather some ideas, right? So in such
Yes.
case, you can cluster those ideas into the that according to your need, because without clustering, even you can't understand. You can prioritize your features or the task. So, uh, so have you got the answer for the question, Indiga?
Yes. Thank you very much on that.
Thanks, Indiga.
I think Hiran, we have like a couple of more questions as well. So there's a question asking, what's the difference between the product designer and UX designer role?
What's the difference between role product designer and UX designer? Yeah, it's a good question. Product designer, as I mentioned, without being a product designer, you can't approach to that holistic method, because UX designer mainly they are focusing on certain level of US aspect. Now, according to that diagram, you might see that the lower level, most of the UX design involved in. But some companies UX designers mostly involved in the top layer even. But for this session, in order to give a clear idea, I use the term called product designer. But in terms of difference, the UX designer think in a broad manner, and he's definitely engaged with the product owner and try to that collaborate heavily in order to understand the benchmarking, the business perspective, and he's always focusing on the business, how it's going to be in 2 years time, 3 years time. Likewise, now as an example, if you consider Airbnb product designer, so how he's going to design that? He's not doing actual product designer. Is hardly that involved with the visual design aspect. Therefore, solely focus on the activities that I mentioned in the top layer. So yeah, and it is very my second question. It is very informative, guys. Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Lakshan. Yeah, Abhishek has a question. Are we supposed to create design system fully, or is it like updating while in design process? Yes, Pasindu is for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Abhishek, for the question. And yeah, we don't have necessarily complete the design system at early stages. As I mentioned, it's better to have like the components that we are going to use at the early stages, like atoms and molecules like buttons, form elements that most of the products are using at the early stages. So, but after finalizing like these basic components, and then we can let the design system grow while the product grow. So likewise, so having basic components, basic means like initial components, as I mentioned, it's going to be really beneficial because those are actually repeatedly needed when it comes to initial visual design phases. So hope you get the answer. And once again, thanks for that question.
Yes, Vajivan is saying like I learned a lot from this session. Thank you, Vajivan. I just want to know what is the one thing you would suggest to person who is entering into UX design. Yes, first and foremost thing is that you have to work with the team in order to gain knowledge, especially senior, mid-level designer. And first try to get the opportunity, and then try to that
maybe you can start from supporting in the visual designs. Then you can get into the touch. That how is the process working on. So all you need is to get the opportunity first. Once join with the team, definitely the senior guy definitely drive you to your next level. So that's how it's be. Yeah. And are there any internship opportunities in Ascentic FICA? Yes, for the moment, not, but at least in coming months, definitely there should be a internship open. So, yeah. Thanks.
I think we do have a couple of more questions as well, Hiran, I guess. One from Pasindu Hetiarachi. It says, if UX designers are unable to conduct a UX workshop for any reason, are there any alternative solution they can use, still gather information and insights to inform the design decisions?
Yes. So Pasindu asked about UX design mindset, right? Sorry. Yeah, right. Yes. If you're, in any case, if you're conducting a UX design mindset, definitely that you must need to formalize your career, right? Now, in case focusing too heavily on visual design, that without considering the usability aspect, it kind of that give a kind of a negative impact on the user experience. So therefore, it's important to strike a balance between aesthetics and the functionality. So all I need to tell you, like, you have to balance it out, because as I mentioned, if you're totally focused on the look and feel of the aesthetic of the product, it's going to be a negative impact. So in order to improve your UX mindset, definitely you have to go through the inspirations that you are daily engaging in, maybe while you're browsing, maybe that while you are looking at others' work, those inspiration you can gain definitely. Always try to critique your designs every time. Now, let's say if you are presenting something designed for a person, then if you are getting more feedbacks, that means there's a problem, right? Feedbacks is a natural thing, but if you're getting more feedbacks, that's something odd. Like feeling like, if you critique yourself, then you have to, you can come up to a certain judgment that there's something wrong with that, my design or the thinking pattern that I have. So in such case, you have to deep dive into those feedbacks and see what went wrong and what sort of action that I need to take to improve. Likewise. So I hope, Pasindu, you can get the answer for your question.
I think we have a few more questions in the chat box as well.
Yes, yeah, Khalidu is asking, when someone is working on single product, some features are designed early as requested. But when it comes to development roadmap, sometimes the design might be outdated. Yeah. But when it comes to development roadmap, sometimes design might be outdated. Is there anything to do with this scenario? Yeah. This is, that design thinking process is an iterative thing. You can't exactly say the first iteration is going to be the final one. It's not like that. You have to not repetitively this that follow these steps. As I shown in my the slides, we have to always follow the iterative pattern within this step 4 and 5. That the prototype, then ideate, prototype, and the validation parts. These are iterated way. When it comes to development, sometimes the design might outdated, because if you're taking some long hours to long time to that design your prototype, that means depending on the technical constraints or technical difficulties, that they might identify these cannot be executed. So in such case, what happened is
they tend to, that design, change your design. So in such case, you have to, that always maintain communication with the product owner or the product manager. Then only you can, clear out both parties. Okay, Kataji is asking a question. Thanks for the great session. What do you think about conversational UX and how we can improve? Yeah, conversational UX becoming more handy these days, especially Chat GPT. You can see how the Google now is going to replace with this Chat GPT. So conversational UI is all about, you have to act like a humanoid robotic, sometimes we call. So in such case, you have to, with the natural language processing, you have to come up with certain UX design patterns. So all you have to do is, that when someone asking a question, how you going to respond it? That's the most critical thing, because these are not a human, right? These are like, just a natural language processing stuff. So in such case, that you have to greet the user first, the person who asked the question, and you can then seamlessly give the answer. Maybe you can break it down, but that's not the part of the UX designer responsibility. Is, that, but you have to engage with developers or the relevant parties in order to improve your UX mindset. So definitely you have so many resources in the internet, so go through it, and because these days this is the hot topic. Yes, and any tips for normal like converting to creative eye? I think Pasindu, you have something to say on that.
So actually, I think practice make you like creative. So, but other than that, you need to have like stay up to date with the trends, and always research on trends and the elements. And as I mentioned, always keep up to date with the design tools and their features. So it makes you like more creative than you think. So taking advantage of those things like make you creative, but always try to do not just creative, like think about solving problems. So then you might get creative in the process. So always take problems and try to create a solution uh, with the process that you experience. So in that way, you might get creative day by day. So practice make you perfect. So as every other field, so you can be like more creative with practice. So thanks for the question, and hope you get answer.
Right. Yeah, Rusiru has a question. Learned a lot from this session. I have one question for solo developer who also do the design by himself, won't be able to get feedback from a team. So what can a solo developer designer can do, get feedbacks and improve the design without a team? Yes. Yes. Believe definitely we have a product owner or the investor, maybe entrepreneur, that sort of high level people. That these people always try, their mindset is really different than normal designer. Okay, so as a designer, you thinking in a narrow or the certain strategical manner pattern, but these people, that we are highly business that strategy level thinking people, they have, their vision is, that something compete for our knowledge. So what you have to do is always blend with them and try to get the maximum out of it, because they have the clear vision and the goal where their idea or the product should head into. So in such case, if you're trying to, that trying to escalate, execute your own things, then definitely not going to help, because you might end up with so many feedbacks, so many iteration loops likewise. So in such case, what happen is it will consume a lot of hours and time. So in such case, it might disadvantage from yourself. So always try to blend with them and try to showcase your designs rather wait until it finished. Maybe the halfway you can share it. If you are using Figma or 60 those prototype tool, you can share easily. So try to get the feedbacks upfront. Then you can align to his goals and visions and apply those things. I hope to answer your question. Thank you very much. Kashif, very informative session, guys. Thank you, Kashif. Khalidu, when someone is working on a single product, some features are designed early as requested. But when it comes to development roadmap, sometimes, as I already answered. Ishara, do you prefer the same design process for all project or product? No, I'm not saying like that is yes. No, it's not like that. It's all depend on the environment or the that project timeline, budget, everything is depend for this, because you can't get what we have discussed in this session as a whole. All you need to is try to map those activities to your need. That's the idea. Now, as an example, persona creation, if you see like persona is straightforward in your case, then you don't want to waste time on doing these templates and all. You can straight away that commit to an affinity diagram, and then you can that list down all the sticky notes with the that pain points or any things that you see, and likewise you can speed up things. But it's I can say like it's totally depend on your project needs and goals, right? Do you prefer the same design for all goals, or do you choose it according to the project? Yes, as I mentioned, is depending on the project, based on the project, we are because sometimes we are not doing activities upfront. Sometimes that we are not doing UX workshop sometimes. So we are sometimes starting from user flows, then wireframes likewise, because we sometimes the budget is not enough to conduct UX workshop. So in such case, we have to know that that the solution that we are going to build is a straightforward. You have enough information. We have a brief in your hand, so that means you can definitely go for use wireframe. Sorry, user flow, then wireframes and so on. Yeah. And we have another question. Is there any certification for wireframes? Yeah, I think Pasin, you have a question for the answer for that, right? Wireframes.
So for the wireframes, I think it covered under
Interaction.
yeah, it covered in both Interaction Design Foundation courses and also in Google UX certificate program. So there's like both Figma and XD courses, 2 courses in Google UX Design certificate program. So where they cover both wireframes and as well as high fidelity designs. So yeah, you can take advantage of that. But yeah, there's also like free sources on YouTube and like blogs that cover all aspects that we talked about today, and as well as some more additional information that we need to consider when we are creating wireframes. So you can take advantage of that as well. So if you are looking for a certification, I highly recommend IXDF program as well as UX Google UX certificate program. Yeah.
Thank you, Pasindu. Another question from Amaya. As a UX designer, do we responsible for basic market research as well, like competitor analysis, define unique selling points? Most certainly, you are responsible to market research because you may get those information from the product owner upfront, and also you have some sort of idea before going to the starting your design thinking process. We have some sort of idea about the product or the problem that you are going to solve. So in such case, sometimes you don't want to deep into that, but at least within the available or within the or given details, you can perform certain research. Because competitor, if you are working on a product, the competitive analysis is really key, because now when you take TikTok and YouTube, you know that they are story concept, that both are identical, right? So in such case, they are competitive, right? They are competitive enough to do that. So in such case, now if you are come to a certain stage, you have to identify you have to identify those things, because if you're trying to deprioritize your features, then the competitor, that definitely goes up, and your business is going to be, in trouble. So that's why we have to always do market research before doing anything. Because now, if you are doing any revamp for the existing product, that also kind of that useful factor. Because if you are doing uh, research for the doing a revamp for the existing product, there might be definitely some problem from the existing product. That's maybe the conversion rate is low, the bounce back rate is high, something like that. So in such case, we have to identify by doing JX matrix, or that going some analytics A/B testing methods. So you can identify those heat maps through what sort of design obstacles that you have. So in such case, with that, you have to identify the competitor, how it's going to work for that certain problem that you are going to solve. So likewise, you can balance out your problem. Okay, and yeah, Hasanta has a question. This session was great. Kindly, can I have the recording of the session or presently for only reference purpose? Of course, Hasanta. Yeah, Anju will definitely share with. So you can definitely request. So he will share with you. What's the product to change the UX design into product designer? Uh, the, you have to go to that upper layer. Remember that I showed you triangle. So you have to be in that layer. Then, even though you are in a UX designer, the title doesn't matter actually. The work or the job that you are doing is the key thing. So you have to definitely to reach that layer in order to become a product designer. But because then only you can perform those certain activities, because that's the most critical parts, challenges that designers face. So yeah. Right. And yep. I think we have one message. We have another question from Losh. Can you explain what is the difference between UX designer and UX engineer? Are both same? Yes, about the same. In Sri Lanka, you know that engineer terms comes with the software engineer, that they are trying to match with that. That's why the engineer part comes into a designation. But as I mentioned, UX designer, engineer, or developer, the work that do is the most important thing. So you have to identify that the daily work that you are in the inside box or outside. So always take the challenge and try to critique your designs and try to obey others' feedbacks, because you learn from feedbacks. That's that's why we call this session holistic, because holistic is not my own effort, it's collective efforts. So then I'm getting all feedbacks from everyone. So that's really helpful for me to drive this process smoothly. So it's very beneficial from the company point of view. Yeah, I think we are done with the questions. Back to you, Anju.
Thanks a lot, Hiran, and absolutely have answered all the questions wonderfully well as well. I'm grateful to the participants as well for coming forward and asking their questions and trying to get to know more from you. And thanks a lot again, Hiran and Pasindu, for that wonderful session. And thank you so much of everyone for listening and like joining in and like sharing your questions as well. So certainly we'll be sharing the recording to your mailbox as soon as we get the recording. And certainly before signing off, I'll introduce myself. I'm Achyutan Sendilkumaran. I'm the lead who is looking after the recruitment at Ascentic. If you want to know anything about Ascentic, or if you want to know more about Fika, or if you want to get into touch with Hiran and Pasindu as well, you can contact me. I'll be able to help you out with that. So hopefully we'll meet in the next speaker session. Till then, stay safe, take care of yourself, enjoy some coffee. Cheers.